Live from the 607 is the ODPH Entertainment Edition, where we're talking movies, comics, TV, and more. Why don't you join in the conversation? Hashtag ODPH, because here we go. And welcome to another edition of the ODPH Entertainment Edition. I am your host, Ken. I'm sitting across from me this week is the one, the only, Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
And folks, we are stepping into the month of October. Now, we call it Costober. Because as Comic-Con season is kicking in the Northeast, especially here in the 607, RoberCon is kicking off this weekend as we tape. New York Comic-Con is the following week. Cosplay is a very big part of those Comic-Cons.
I'm saying not just those Comic-Cons, but conventions in general.
Right, and it's really grown to really, like I want to say, a mainstream presence almost.
Yeah, there are definitely, it's gone from one of those things that like, it was kind of one of the, I don't know if fringe internet things is the right word for it, but it was one of those things like it was a thing, but like it wasn't mainstream known. There weren't big names that you knew kind of in a casual conversation. And now it's to the point where there's a lot of folks that like, this is their livelihood. This is how they make their money every day.
Right, and it's really grown into, out of just being a hobby into a lifestyle. So one thing we thought is going into Costober, we'd bring on some cosplayers that we know that are very, very good interviews for you people to get a little more informed of the whole cosplay lifestyle.
Right.
So, and we're kicking off a little early because, as we said, RoberCon is this weekend. If you're living in the 607 area, New York Comic-Con is next week, and next week's show is going to be devoted entirely to New York Comic-Con. We figure we kick off Costober a little early with a friend of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Scott Dixon.
Hi.
Now, Scott is an avid cosplayer, and we've seen him down at many conventions, so we figured we'd bring him on and have him give you a little Cosplay 101. So, Scott, how long have you been cosplaying for?
I've been cosplaying for almost a decade at this point.
Okay.
Ooh, wow.
2007 was my first.
Now, how did you get involved in it? Like, what was the first time, like, when you saw somebody cosplaying, did you immediately go, like, this is interesting, like, I want to know more about it?
I mean, I was always into, like, wearing costumes for Halloween and whatnot, and, like, dressing up and that kind of thing when I was younger. When I went to my first series of conventions in Gen Con in Indianapolis, there were a few cosplayers there, but it looked like a lot of fun and something I wanted to try doing. So 2007, I put together like a barbarian costume. I put together a barbarian costume and just showed up to the convention, had an absolute blast. The thing was made out of like chicken bones and like scraps of fur. Cost me maybe like $10.
Right. I mean, that's the thing you see a lot is you go to a place like RoberCon, New York Comic-Con, heck, even San Diego Comic-Con. You will see the ones that are as simple as, you just went out, bought a mask, and you're running around as like very early Peter Parker Spider-Man. And then you'll see the ones like, I know we saw the one year at New York Comic-Con was like the Hulkbuster or Bumblebee.
The Bumblebee one, yeah. I mean, the suits that can get very elaborate. Now, for our audience listening, cosplay stands for costume playing?
Yes, costume play.
Okay. And just essentially is when you dress up as a certain character and you're acting as said character, correct?
Yes.
All right. And so, like I said, you got into it, you've been doing it for about a decade now, so about 2007. So you just go to your first convention and you're like, okay, this is like looking wild. Like, I really want to kind of find out about it. And just really, that's where you kind of like inspired, okay, I really want to get into it. So what made you decide on your first costume? Like, what was the thought process behind it?
The first costume I wanted to do was the barbarian costume. Just a generic, like not any specific character, just something to be fantasy at a Gen Con, by the way, is like tabletop games and whatnot, not so much like comic books.
Right.
But so I picked a barbarian because I thought it would be fun. I'm a large dude, like imposing, and typically when you see barbarians in like fantasy, that sort of thing, their costumes aren't so much elaborate as they are like stitched together from like whatever pieces and furs they could collect. So it seemed like a really easy like entry point into that because I didn't have to have skill or talent. I just had to put things together and make it look nice.
It was just kind of like as vivid as your imagination would go with it.
Yeah.
So as you're going around your first convention, you said you're wearing the costume. What was the reaction?
I I mean, most people, they look away, or not really look away. They don't make eye contact or go out of their way to tell you they have a nice costume. But I was there with friends, every now and then we'd run into another group of people also cosplaying as like fantasy characters, and they would run up to us and like get pictures, and we'd like act some scenes out. And like that was a very welcoming, like nice atmosphere. But 90% of people don't care because it's a big crowded area and you're not going to be spending all of your time looking at all these individual costumes when you've got things to do.
Right. I mean, I think that's one thing is just like an aspect, like especially when we talk about going to cons, it's just there's so much going on that it's just this is one part of the aspect of it.
Oh, yeah.
That it's just, as you're putting in the time doing it, it's like you really are, getting involved in whatever con you're going to. Now, you said the one you went to for Gen Con, that's not so much comic books, that's more like table games and such like that.
Yes.
So it's just sort of like you're, getting ideas from the table games you're playing, or just in general, just, something to dress up and just kind of really, embrace the moment you're in.
And it was very refreshing, too, because it's initially it's quite embarrassing to wear a costume and go out to, like, a big public event like this. But you only get, like, positive feedback when you do get feedback. So realizing that most people don't care and they're also there to have fun, it's very freeing.
Mm-hmm.
So it lets you go out and be this character that you want to be. It's way less embarrassing once you actually do it.
Right. It's just, you almost kind of treat it like the first time when you go swimming. It's like when you're really scared to go into the water, and then once you're in, it's like you're getting comfortable in the situation you're in.
Exactly.
So it's just kind of, as you go from there, immediately, after the con was over, did you go, okay, I want to definitely do this again, and you kind of really got bit by the whole cosplay bug, so to speak?
Oh, yeah.
So what was the process of going into the next con?
The next con was finding the next con, because it took a few years between, that was the last Gen Con I had gone to.
Okay.
And we had been trying to find a new convention. It turned out PAX East.
Okay, yeah.
PAX East is a great convention. But
now, that for our listeners that don't know what PAX East is, it's a video game one.
Yeah, PAX East, the Penny Arcade Expo by the Penny Arcade comic book or webcomic, I guess, creators.
Yeah.
They started up their own convention, and it ballooned into this massive international thing. There's PAX East, PAX Prime, PAX South, PAX Australia. I think there's a PAX Britain now, maybe?
Yeah, I believe there is, yeah. It's the biggest gaming convention east of the Mississippi. It's just bonkers every year because, yeah, E3 is the biggest gaming convention, period. PAX is almost as big. It's crazy.
So going into that, like, what was your thought process? You're like, okay, well, I did the barbarian costume, the last con I went to. Now I want to go as...
This time we went as characters from Pokemon, the anime, but...
Okay.
Seeing as how we're all in our mid-20s, we decided to go as characters from Pokemon 10 to 15 years later.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So it's nice to be able to put that own little spin on it. But again, we wanted like simpler costumes that were easier to do. So I picked Ash Ketchum. So I had to buy the hat, the gloves, make the vest. Oop.
Now, how long would a process like this go into? Like, obviously you just don't do this on a weekend. Like, going into the con, when it is. Like, how many months in advance do you say you plan?
I mean, we usually start right after we have tickets.
Okay.
Buying tickets and making sure that everyone that can go is going is like the first big hurdle. And then from there, we like sit down, we talk in a group about what costume, what theme we want to do. And we'll generally start planning them out right after tickets have been purchased.
Okay.
If we want to do like group costumes where every member of our group is cosplaying is the same thing. We can do individual ones, all that's decided well ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the months go on, you kind of cut the costumes that you can't do in time and like focus on like one or two things.
So you'd say this is roughly like a 3-month window, would you say? Or is it longer, like when tickets go on sale, just for the time frame for our listeners?
About a 3-month window.
So about a 3-month window, you're really just kind of piecing together. Like, you always go with a group of, like about 4 or 5 at least.
Yes.
So when you immediately everybody gets their tickets, you all get together and go, okay, this is what we want to do this year, and you just kind of throw something out like, okay, we're going for this one. We're going to PAX East. It's a little more like video game focused, a little more, not necessarily a comic book convention, but it's something that is going to have a lot of different things going on. That you're like, okay, let's all go as a group, and then you're kind of just taking it out of the simple prospect of, okay, we can just dress up as a character. We want to do something a little different. We want to kind of do it as if it was aged 10 years.
Right.
So just kind of say, do your own spin with the comic.
I'll say which I love that, because I remember when Pokemon first came out with the video games and the anime and everything, and the show astoundingly is still going on to this day. So it's 15 plus years later, and you look at the main character or any of the characters in that show, really none of them have aged in like 20 some odd years. So you putting that spin on it is fantastic, because it's the look we will possibly never get at the characters.
And it's funny too. We went with Elise. And she cosplayed as a May, I believe.
Okay. Yeah.
So we had this like burnout, like mid-20s, just not good-looking people dressed as Pokemon characters. I've got my long hair. We're all covered in tattoos.
That's amazing. But that's just going to show. I mean, like with your group and just everybody getting involved into and just buying into the concept. And then when you got to PAX, is going as we'll just say the aged Pokemon group. What was the reaction from people walking around?
We had people stopping us to take pictures with us. We were like joining. Usually when you go to a convention, you can find groups of other people cosplaying, sometimes with a similar theme. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you will see them from like across the hall, and you will make eye contact and just like gravitate towards each other and like immediately start taking pictures. Not to skip ahead, but at a different PAX, we were all Resident Evil characters.
Okay.
And we ended up meeting up at the Capcom booth. And it was kind of like a blood clot, collecting more blood clots, because everyone who was a Resident Evil cosplayer ended up stopping at the booth. And we had about 30 or 40 Resident Evil cosplayers all taking pictures, completely ruining like the show floor hall, unfortunately. Like the flow of traffic, because people were stopping to take pictures.
See, that's just incredible to see, because just to put it in perspective, I mean, cons get hundreds of thousands of people depending on what where you go, and just to see like a big group like that, just all of a sudden you go to a booth and there's 30 people dressed and acting as the characters from the booth that you're at, and just kind of seeing the different interaction, just like the different interpretations. I mean, it's got to be a wild experience.
Oh yeah, and it's not just the costume either. People often. They work on their poses as well as the costume itself. Mm-hmm. They want to make it so their costume looks as good as it can for your camera.
Yeah.
So, like, the poses are part of it. The interactions with other cosplayers is a huge part of it as well.
There's just so much involved in it that, like we've been saying, it just really has grown just from just being a simple concept of, just dressing up to just go to, there's a lot more involved in it.
I think a lot more people... as time goes on, they become more comfortable, and like as nerd culture becomes more mainstream, people are more and more inclined to actually like dress up and embrace it fully. Mm-hmm. So like 10, 15 years ago, it might have been a freaky thing, and now it's just a normal thing. You go to a convention and you expect to see the cosplayers. It's not a weird subculture anymore. It's become the mainstream.
Right. You definitely look at 10, 15 years ago where you kind of had to look to find cosplay photos or videos or anything. Now it's like you can almost find a video for like every convention of like, a compilation of the cosplays somebody went through and videotaped.
Even the smaller cons, like a RoberCon here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like there's still cosplayers coming out there. There's the cosplay bar crawl that's coming up this week, I believe.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, we're going to talk about RoberCon a little later in the show, but you're right, though. I mean, it's grown that it's just not so much something that you see at a convention. It's now something, I don't want to say you see every day, but it depends on where you go. You definitely see cosplay is more in the public eye than it's been in years.
Oh, definitely.
And I mean, you take a look at like what Pat was saying too is like now you're seeing companies come down and they're taping cosplays. I mean, you look at companies like Sneaky Zebra, mm-hmm. Beatdown Boogie, Minerable, that are doing videos of just cosplayers at conventions and just showing the how great costumes are, and just more or less the sense of not so much the costumes, just the people having fun.
Right. And the one I can think of immediately off the top of my head is I can't remember the guy's name, but there's a guy on Facebook who goes to like various conventions dressed as Deadpool and just screws with everyone around the convention, as characters as if he's Deadpool.
Is it D-Pity is who you're thinking
Something
of?
Like that. Yeah. Like I remember the last one I saw was from a recent convention. I think it was in Atlanta or something. And there was somebody dressed as Cable, like from the movie. And he just went up to him and he's like, huh? Yeah. And with music playing in the background. So that makes the videos all more hilarious, is because you kind of making the own conversations in your head of what they're saying because you don't know what they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's become such a thing that now it's almost like another element of the shows when you go, or just if you're going to somewhere that's really doing nerd culture, like a real big public event.
Yes,
that this is now just another aspect of it, so to speak.
I mean, we see it out in the wild on like Free Comic Book Day, even. Like people will show up in costume to Free Comic Book Day because why not?
Yeah. I mean, even to bring it down to lesser, experience, we just had the Luma Festival in town.
Yep.
And there were people cosplaying as Deadpool and Harley Quinn.
Because why not?
Yeah.
Nice.
Which was great. I mean, shout out to them too, because I know they listen to the show. But it was just cool to just see, okay, cosplay is down here. And nobody was going like, why are they dressed up? It was just like, hey, that's awesome. And that's like the best feeling. It's now showing how far cosplay has gone. So getting back to your journey with cosplay, so you do PAX East, and you're going as the aged Pokemon.
Yep.
Then what's next?
What's next? We did PAX East again.
Okay. So it was a year turnaround before you got doing cosplay after that.
What was that?
It was a year turnaround, so you did PAX East, and then you decided to go back. So it's been a year time frame.
Yeah, we did PAX East 3 years in a row.
Okay.
We usually do one big convention, PAX East, New York Comic Con, something like that, because we're poor and that's what we can afford. So it's also nice to have the time to work on one big thing.
Right.
Then go out and enjoy it, and then have all the wind down after.
Yeah.
PAX East we did again. The next year was, I believe that was Resident Evil year.
Okay.
I was Jill Valentine.
Okay.
My friend was Barry Burton. My other friend was Wesker.
Okay.
Okay, so as you're going with the group, and then you're just seeing, I mean, this is when, as you previously mentioned, this is when everybody met at the booth.
Yes.
And then you just see, 30, 40 cosplayers all doing the same, admiration for the, the topic you're doing. I mean, so what was it like with the different interaction with the groups?
The different groups, it's nice to be able to go out and be recognized in your costume for whatever you're dressed up as. Especially with the Jill Valentine costume. Again, I'm a 6'7" man, and Jill Valentine is like 5'2" and weighs like 80 pounds.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
So it's fun to walk out and have people like see the costume and then watch the gears in their head turn and click and be like, "Oh my God, you're Jill Valentine as a giant man." And I'm like, "I sure am."
And just the reaction from that, I mean, it's got to be mind blowing because I mean, sure, when you see characters that you play as video games or you watch on movies and just see like such a a different take on it. Like you said, Jill Valentine is such a shorter character, and then to see you who's 6'7", that's gonna be just mind blowing for some people.
Oh yeah, everybody loved it too. Some people were a little off on it. They were like, "Why are you Jill Valentine?" I'm like, "She's my favorite character, and I wanted to dress as my favorite character."
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh,
reason
props."
enough.
Yeah, it's like you don't really need an explanation. It's just this is my favorite character I want to do, and I'm just going to do my interpretation.
I don't need to justify my passions to other people.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what you kind of go through. Now, as you said, at this point, you've done 2 different cons. You did Gen Con, and this is PAX East.
Yep.
What would you say is like the biggest difference in crowds or reactions?
At PAX East especially, people I guess are more open to cosplaying. There's a lot more cosplay going on there. It's also like more of a video game crowd, like that sort of people. So like people get more excited to see like these easily recognizable video game characters, whereas the Gen Con experience was more generic fantasy character.
Okay.
Nothing too special. I feel if you're cosplaying as like an immediately recognizable character, you're going to get a much bigger and stronger reaction because it's a character that people love, and they love seeing these characters out in the open. They love like sharing these passions for these characters with other people.
So with that being said, so you did PAX East again, and then was it another year layoff?
It was another year to the next PAX East.
Okay, and then what was the process then? Okay, so we went as Resident Evil, so we got our tickets. What do we want to go as this year?
That year we chose Borderlands.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Because Borderlands 2 had been out for about a year or so, and like everyone loved it.
And what year is this again?
I don't remember. I'd have to
So
look.
Borderlands 2, I want to say that was around 2012, 2013. Somewhere in that ballpark.
Spoilers, this is when they announced Borderlands 3 or the pre-sequel.
Yeah.
Like they announced it at this convention, and we were invited to that because of our costumes.
Nice.
So it's just like an extra benefit of it.
Yeah. Oh well, we all made our costumes. I was Krieg.
Oh boy.
My friend was Gage.
Mm-hmm.
We had a Zero, and we had. I can't remember the other guy's name. The big dude with the guns.
Oh yeah, Marcus.
Marcus. We had a Marcus, and who's the other guy? The other main character, the soldier.
I'm blanking on the name, but I know who you're talking about. It's gonna bug me.
The soldier guy there as well. Whatever. It's Borderlands. I haven't played it in so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's been a while since Borderlands was like really like a big name.
Yeah. But we show up in our costumes, and some of them are pretty good. Some of them aren't so good. Like my Krieg one was all right, but not great. But we get out onto the floor, and immediately this dude runs up to us, just like from the Borderlands booth. I'm like, I have no idea who this guy is. He demands that we come over and like we take a picture, and they're like getting pictures and stuff. Another guy like hops in the photo, and he's taking pictures of them too. And then like the crowd disperses a bit, and like they go to walk away. My friend's like, oh my god, I'm such a big fan of your games. Like, thank you. And he's like, yeah, no problem. And he goes and he, screws off to his booth to like grab some stuff for us. I'm like, who are these people?
Yeah.
He's like, that's Randy Pitchford. And I'm like,
Oh wow.
I'm like, who? And he's like, he's the president of Gearbox.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh
Yeah.
heck.
Yeah.
And the other guy was the voice of Claptrap.
Oh my god.
And like they were taking pictures with us. They like demanded it. They loved our costumes. The guy came back and he gave us invitations to the big Gearbox panel.
Oh wow.
Nice.
Which normally was like a 3-hour wait, but we just cut in front and we got to sit in the front rows. They had us like go up on stage and like show off our cosplay, and that's where they announced the pre-sequel.
Okay.
That's wild.
And they gave everyone in the auditorium a free copy of the game as well.
Nice.
So not only did you just go, I mean, just being a fans of Borderlands, you also got the free copy of the game.
Yep.
And you got to meet the president of the company, and just, I mean, that's just such a a unique experience. I mean, that few people get. I mean, it's wild to even just put in perspective, just dressing up as your favorite character and just doing the cosplay. Just your admiration for them came back tenfold.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's just got to be such an incredible feeling. And then going from there, when was the next con?
From there, the next con was New York Comic Con.
Okay, so how was that? Was the planning different in just from what you guys would normally do, you and your group to go, or was it kind of the same? Okay, we all got passes. What's the plan for this?
For Comic Con, because we would stay at Elise's place down there.
Elise is a friend of the show, and she's part of the group that you go with. To just clarify to our listeners.
Because she had an apartment down there at the time, we could actually mail things to her. So bigger, bulkier, like cosplay pieces that opened up the avenue to mail all of that down ahead of time, so we didn't have to take it on the bus. So
that is an added bonus, and especially when you do costumes of a certain size, getting them from the heart of the city to someplace else is rather cumbersome and a bit of a pain.
Yes, or stuffing it into a suitcase and then putting it on a Greyhound bus.
Right, because then you run the risk of, okay, I hope we don't hit some construction or a pothole, because if it does, my bag is going to bounce, and there's stuff in there that really can't bounce because it's fragile.
And especially if you have a costume, like Pat was saying, it's fragile. Transportation to get it from point A, wherever you're staying, to point B, con, is always a challenge.
Let's say it's easy to get to the con once you're in the city, because by and large, people will respect what your work and what you've done. They won't run up to and do, oh my gosh, and start touching and grabbing it and feeling it. So getting there to the con's not the issue. It's getting down to the city.
Yes.
But once you get down there, I mean, obviously the plan is there, and then you decide to go as this year.
What was that?
What did you decide to go as that year for New York Comic Con?
That year we did Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
We didn't actually have to mail anything that year, thankfully, because Dragon Ball Z is mostly cloth-based costumes.
Yeah.
I went as Hercule.
Oh my gosh.
Pat's a big Dragon Ball guy.
That's great.
People love Hercule.
Yeah, they do. They really do.
I would walk around, like, even just outside of the con, people yelling, "Hail Satan" or "Hercule rules" or things like that.
Of course, when they say Hail Satan, Satan being the actual Japanese name for the character. Translated, of course, once it got translated for English audiences, they go, hey, we can't exactly put Satan on air over TVs. So they changed it to Hercule.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Hercule Satan.
Yep.
So being that, I mean, obviously the reaction now, would you say like the New York Comic Con was, a lot different crowd than PAX East and Gen Con?
Yes. New York Comic Con, by and large, has the biggest like cosplay community that I've seen so far. I've heard really good things about Dragon Con as well, but that's sort of a distant down the line like dream that I have of going to Dragon Con one day. I kind of need to step up my cosplay game before that, but
there's still always time. So as you're going down and you're just kind of seeing, like you said, it's the biggest cosplay community that you've seen and actually been a part of.
yes.
I mean, so what's your reaction just seeing everybody else down there?
I mean, it's a little humbling, if I'm being honest. There are some people that go so far above and beyond with their cosplay. The Hulkbuster armor,
Yeah.
that guy, who I believe he was Reinhardt from Overwatch last year.
Last year,
Maybe.
I think so, because there
I
was
think
that
you're
one.
right.
There was that one. There was somebody walking around as Bumblebee. There was somebody else walking around as Voltron.
It might have been the year before.
I think it was the year before you're thinking about with Bumblebee, because I think
I'm just remembering large costumes.
right, no, because whoever that person is always does like a phenomenal job, because I mean that costume has to be like 9 feet tall.
Yeah.
It's like stilts and like all sorts of weird, like mechanized. I'm not sure how it works.
Because I remember the Bumblebee one, because I was like, oh wow, that's actually really impressive, because it was huge. And then not 5 minutes later, somebody comes walking down, and I'm like, oh, that's Five Nights at Freddy's. It's one of the villain, the bad guys in Five Nights at Freddy's. And I'm like, hold on a minute, that's not a person in a costume. That's somebody remote controlling this thing.
Nice.
That was like, holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, just to see, like, especially at New York Comic Con, it's like there's so many different, just cosplay ideas you're gonna see.
Yeah.
And just like is for Scott, who's gone, to, I mean, I think if I'm doing my math right, at least 4 cons by this point as cosplaying, just to see the different ideas. I mean, does that make you go, okay, next year I want to come back and do something even more wild and even more, step my game up?
I mean, it's definitely inspirational. At first, it's overwhelming, but that's because it's New York Comic Con and it's 100,000 people packed inside the Javits Center, and it's a little meat grindery. It's a little anxiety-inducing.
Right.
But getting out and experiencing like the cosplay, the community, and everyone out there that's just as passionate about these things, like it fills you with inspiration. And like even during the con, while I'm having fun, I'm still thinking of ideas for what I want to do next.
And that's just got to be really inspiring. We're going to take a quick break, come back and talk a little more to Scott. You're listening to the ODPH Entertainment Edition.
2, 3, 4! Hey, this is Johnny Moose from Excite Wrestling, and you're listening to the ODPH. I didn't mess it up. I thought I would. Right now, back to the guys.
Coming back for another segment on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition with Scott Dixon, cosplayer extraordinaire. Now, as it's a recap, he's telling us about his journey, in cosplay. And this is right now the first year he's been to New York Comic Con, where he's seeing, like I said, it's like 100,000 people down there. Obviously, one of the biggest comic book conventions on the planet. And you're just seeing all the different types of cosplay and just getting more inspired, just being a fan, but just walking around and seeing just all the different types down there.
Oh, yeah.
And then, so from this point, you were doing the Dragon Ball Z character, and then obviously after seeing this, what did you get? You said you got more inspired to, next year I'm going to really step my game up and do something different.
It was very inspiring. I wanted to step my game up and do something different. I don't believe that actually happened, but things get in the way. Real life happens.
Yeah. So at this point, though, you're going back for another year at New York Comic Con.
Yes.
So what was the thought process going into this?
First and foremost, I believe we've got our years mixed up.
Okay.
We go to a lot of cons.
Yeah, there's a lot of conventions and a lot of dates that I can't really remember. The first year was actually Crossbones.
Okay.
Okay.
This was 2014. 2015 was Dragon Ball.
Okay. So we just got the years mixed up. Just
Right.
all right. So you're going from the Winter Soldier, because I believe that's when the movie was coming out, right?
Yes.
or around that time. It was kind of like that was the big thing that I think, when like big Hollywood blockbuster movies come out, that's when like a lot of people really get ideas for it, and that's when like Marvel is really kind of kicking the gear with the Marvel Studios MCU. Mm-hmm. So then you went from there to Dragon Ball Z.
Yep.
And then you're going into
2016 was One Punch Man.
Okay. Great anime.
Yep. I was a Puri prisoner.
Okay.
Yep.
Very nice.
Again, another one of those characters that very few people actually cosplay as, because he's an ancillary character that's kind of a joke character, but people love seeing that costume in person.
I gotta say, that's one of the fun things is I don't have the talent or the time to cosplay, but I enjoy seeing them, especially at con. I enjoy seeing the level of detail and clearly the time and effort that put into it. I remember there was one last year when we went to con. I don't know what she was. There was a woman there dressed up as something from I don't know what, but she had a crowd like the 3 days she was there, like 200 people deep surrounding her, and it was like she was in a dress or gown or something that was like trailing like 15 plus feet behind her, whatever she was. It was impressive. So I enjoy seeing that. I also enjoy seeing, because you go to a comic book convention, you're going to see Spider-Man, you're going to see Captain America, you're going to see Iron Man, you're going to see Wolverine, you're going to see your typical ones. What I enjoy the most is looking around and going, oh my God, it's such and such character. I never would have thought I would have seen that here.
Yes. One of my favorite pictures is from the Crossbones year, actually. Mm-hmm. We were going around and we found a gender-swapped Scooby in the gang.
Yeah.
And,
really?
Yep. So male Velma is pulling my hood off of my Crossbone costumes in one picture.
Oh, jeez.
And that's great enough as it is, but the picture gets even better when you look in the background and there's Waldo walking by just in the background from Where's Waldo?
Just randomly, or was it planned to like
He
that?
was just randomly in there, and I'm like, holy crap, there's Waldo in the back of my picture.
You're talking about worlds colliding right there.
Like, how many pictures do you think has Waldo just in the back of them out there, just wandering the show floor?
No, I mean, and then that's the one great thing about cons, and especially when you're cosplaying, it's just you get the chance to see all different types of characters, and you don't know like how they're going to mesh up in a picture.
Exactly.
So going in with that though, you're going around and doing One Punch Man, and especially like if you're a big anime, fan, about that show, and just seeing the reaction from the anime crowd, and then let alone you're kind of introducing people to the show as well.
Oh yeah, you get a bunch of people that come up and ask you, what characters are you from, that sort of thing, and it's a nice opportunity to sit down and talk to these people. Explain to them, what show you're from, why you love it, why you chose this character.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much that gets involved into it. And as you're just going through and just getting the reaction from it, I mean, that's just got to be such a great feeling.
Oh, it is.
Just like it's still from like, if you want to even just, take it back to the first time you went as the Barbarian.
Yeah.
And it's just like continue to grow.
I'd put it on par with doing drugs. Not that I recommend doing drugs, but it certainly feels like it.
It's a euphoric state.
Yes.
Is what he wants to try saying, folks. Don't do drugs. So with that being said, you're going in, so the con this year, you did One Punch Man, and then you took 2017 off, so now you're coming back to New York Comic Con. And then, do you want to announce what you're doing this year?
Oh, I'm doing their teacher Aizawa from My Hero Academia.
Okay. Very nice.
I picked this one because it's a very easy costume for me. It's basically coveralls. I've already got the long hair. I just need to make a scarf. And I need to look tired all the time.
So yeah, I know My Hero Academia, one of the biggest animes going right now.
Oh yeah. Superhero Naruto.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's just to see, like, because, we were talking about anime a few episodes back here on the ODPH. Mm-hmm. It's just to see, like, that's really kind of taken more of a mainstream jump over the past few years, too. And now you're tying that in with the cosplay. I mean, that's just got to be a winning combination right there.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure there's going to be hundreds of My Hero Academia cosplayers there as well.
Yeah, that's probably a safe bet.
It's good to go for shows that are at least somewhat popular that you're passionate about, because there will always be other people there that you can meet up with. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of fun to share these, experiences with these other people that are also cosplaying the same thing that you are.
Yeah, I mean, that's just got to be one thing just to tie it all together. I mean, it's just fans being like fans, but just taking it to another level.
Yeah.
It's just, if you're spending the time and spending the money and effort to really just, pay homage to a character that really affected you one way or another, is just truly a great feeling. And like I say, it puts you in a very euphoric state as you're walking around, you're getting admiration, you're having random people run up to you and say, "Oh, can I get your picture?"
Yep.
And then, does that ever get old, by the way?
No, not at all. Unless you're like trying to eat, then it gets old a
Yeah.
little bit.
So it's almost like a movie star thing in a lesser degree.
Oh yeah,
It's just like when you're out in public and you got people taking pictures left and right.
But I mean, part of cosplaying is like assuming that people are going to want your picture.
Mm-hmm.
So you practice your pose, like I said earlier, and
And I know we talked about this off air. It's like you've been going to the gym to actually work out for this.
oh yeah,
I mean, so is basically as soon as you do the group planning, so to speak, and you're like, okay, this is what we're going to go as this year. Then you really hammer it in, and you're like, okay, I got to dedicate time to go to the gym and just really make sure that I look the part.
yes. Especially for like this or in cosplaying as a skinnier character. I've got a bit of a tummy on me, so I've been going to the gym, doing a lot of cardio, losing weight. I'm down about 25 pounds so far.
Wow.
Oh, good for you.
That's awesome, man.
I'm a big guy, so it's easy for me to lose weight. Like it kind of just drops off of me.
And just dedication to the craft too, because like you say, you're going to make that impression on somebody, and then when you go start talking the show, and it's like you're talking to fellow fans and just getting that reaction from them. I mean, it's just energy bouncing off energy.
Oh yeah, and again, when you're meeting up with other fans, like it's that instant connection right there. Like there's no awkward small talk or anything like that. Like you can just dive right in.
Yeah, and so you can go from there, and then as you say, with especially being at a con, you're making friends left and right, and you're making contacts, and just just like I say, just expressing fandom to the fullest.
Yeah, it's a hobby, but it's a lifestyle as well. Like I would highly recommend anyone who is interested in cosplay try to get into cosplay.
Now, what would you say is like a do and a don't for cosplay?
One of the big ones is if you're just starting out, keep it simpler. You don't want a too elaborate costume, something that's going to fall apart after a few hours on the floor. And keeping in mind that you're going to be wearing this, so it needs to be comfortable, it needs to fit right, and it needs to not weigh a lot. Like as great as it would be to be wearing like a full suit of armor out on the con floor, you have to stand in that for hours upon hours at a time. Heat is an issue, weight is an issue.
I got a great example of that too. Brad Guy Signal, who does the show, was going as Red Hood last year.
Oh,
And we were in line for Tom King down in Artist Alley at the Javis.
Which, for those who've been to the New York Comic Con, because they'd torn down where they used to do Artist Alley, they'd moved Artist Alley into the Empire Room.
Yes.
didn't they have a really unsafe situation with like the escalator being turned on and just pushing people into the crowd of more people?
I vaguely remember something like that.
There was something going on. It's just like that they had so many people jammed in that one section
Yeah.
that it kind of felt like that. But it was just one of those situations that, like, for him, he had the full mask on, and he had like a real, like, authentic mask. And I just remember he took it off at one point. He's just like, dude, I just can't. It's so hot down here.
Yep.
It's just because there's a sea of humanity down there because everybody's, in line.
It's Sea of Humanity with like one way for air to flow in and out.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things like you got to make sure you're comfortable wearing a costume.
Yeah.
Because like I said, he went as full Red Hood, and it was just like he just got to him and he's like, yo, this is just way too hot right now.
Oh yeah. My Crossbones costume. It's the full body armor, the hood, everything like that. The body armor itself is made out of like thin foam. Like I went the lightest I could find, the most breathable fabric. The hood is just a ski mask that I sewed together and then painted over. And like it's very lightweight material. It's very breathable. Even then, after a few hours, you're still just buckets of sweat.
Oh yeah, because especially if you're walking around a big crowd like that. And I mean, the Javits has always been a very comfortable place to walk around. Like I would say, even for a con, it's not so much jammed where you can't move.
I mean, it gets that way on like Sundays.
Yeah, just with the amount of people in there, but you still can move around pretty well. But it's just like any big event you go to, the more people you have in there, is just the more heat radiates.
Right, and there are certain areas where it gets crazy. I remember last year when they had the Justice League costumes or outfits that they wore in the movie were there. Like that over in that area.
Over in the DC booth.
The DC booth, you get a lot of congestion. So you'll get congestion in certain areas where it's, some big company, like a Capcom or, I remember this company that makes the Yu-Gi-Oh cards was having their whole thing, so there was a lot of people there. You'll get it in certain areas, but yeah, no, by and large, it's fairly easy to move around.
But you definitely want to say the moral is be comfortable in your costume. Like, don't go super elaborate. Like, you don't need to have a full Iron Man suit.
Yeah.
Out the gate.
Cool as it would be, you got to think sensibly.
Yes.
Like, try it out. Try it something. The Shota Aizawa costume, it's, like I said, it's coveralls and a scarf. Like, it is designed to be breathable and nice and fun to wear. And like, as I get older, I want to do slightly less elaborate costumes because I want to also be able to enjoy the rest of the convention.
Right.
And, you know, the days of wearing a full body muscle suit are kind of behind me right now.
Yeah. But it's just one of the things that as you're getting into it, it's like you want to just keep it very simple to you really kind of get, the feel for it, so to speak.
Yeah, dip your toes in the water like that, and then if it's something that you love, then go full ham on it. There are plenty of really good resources out there for cosplay.
Yeah, because it's become such a big thing now.
Oh, yeah. Adam Savage has a lot of really good videos on cosplay and, like, the cosplay community. His YouTube series, Tested...
Mm-hmm.
He sometimes covers making like his costumes, and every convention he does what he calls an incognito costume, where it's something that you can't see his face. He'll release what it is after the fact. But one year he did Totoro. Another year he was one of the crew members from Alien, and he was in the full spacesuit with the xenomorph face hugger put down over the face mask. And, like, you can get as elaborate as you want. If you're going to do something like that, you need to wear, like, an undersuit, preferably, like, something water-cooled so you don't overheat and die.
You just definitely want to keep it safe as possible, too, but have fun. I mean, that's the whole point of doing cosplay.
Oh, yeah.
Is just, have fun, doing something, a little left of center, but you're still, being a fan. And I mean, that's what it is at the end of the day.
It's taking something that you love and making it your own and expressing your joy for that thing through costume.
Absolutely. Scott, we can't thank you enough for coming on the show. We're going to be having more cosplayers on during the month of Costober. But let's take a quick break. You're listening to the ODPH Entertainment Edition.
Hey, this is Rob Kacharik from the band 607, Autopilot Off, and Walking Distance. And you're listening to ODPH.
Coming back for segment number 3 on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition. Scott Dixon is going to hang out with us all show. Scott, you a big X-Men fan?
I'm an alright X-Men fan.
The Gifted is coming back tonight on Fox. Now, you said you haven't seen the show before.
I have not, no.
Pad, you've seen it.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen it too, so we're going to give you a quick primer into what to expect. This is a show that I will say exceeded my expectations, because usually when you hear about the X universe and they're doing a network show, you really don't know what you're going to get, because you would think, okay, they got to have Wolverine in it, they got to have Cyclops, Professor X.
Also, where's it going to take place? What movies are going to count? What movies aren't?
Yeah, because obviously with an established franchise such as the X-Men, and with the movie success that they've had, you kind of like, okay, what are the expectations going to be? This was a different take. This is set in, we're assuming, an alternative timeline where something has happened to the X-Men. They're just referring to it as an incident. And it kind of spirals from the story of, a family whose 2 children turn out to be mutants and are now on the run. They get tied up with what we assume is the remains of the X-Men as the mutant underground. And you kind of see that their struggle to, try keeping Professor Xavier's dream intact. And now as the season's progressing, you're seeing there's more elements of the Magneto side coming into play. They introduced, I thought it was the Stepford Cuckoos at first.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be the Frost Sisters.
Right.
Who are triplets who are, highly telekinetic and mental power based, antagonists, if you will. And just to kind of see how they spiraled into the group and basically shattered the mutant underground.
A little bit.
Obviously they've taken some members under their wing now into the inner circle of the Hellfire Club, which if you read X-Men, you know about.
Right.
So going into the season, though, what is the expectations, Pat? I'll start with you for the show.
I'm interested to see where they go with Reed Strucker and his family, because of course you look at where they left with the end of season 1, where the son was like, enough of you, had enough of your stuff, to that effect, and kind of deserted them, I should say, for the inner circle. So it's kind of dealing with that loss, because realistically, you look back at season 1, they wouldn't be in the position they are in if it weren't for their son, and that's not meant in a negative way. It's just simple facts. They wouldn't be where they are if it wasn't for him. Of course, he tore the gym down in like episode 1 of the first season. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that loss of him not being there. Is he truly, gone? He wants nothing to do with them. There's no redeeming him. Or is it just a simple case of, okay, he's being shown a certain point of view that is really appealing to him right now. we can try and turn him back?
It's a good question. And with the show, like I said, they've taken elements from the X-Men universe and implemented it. I mean, they had, Sentinel Security?
Yep.
Which, if you know anything about the X-Men, you say the word Sentinel,
Your ears perk up.
you're going to get a reaction. I mean, I would say so.
Oh, yes, definitely.
And then you throw in, factors of the whole human versus mutant element. I mean, they have the character Jace, and you see his progression.
Yeah.
And you understand why he is how he is. And, I mean, they kind of add some nice layers to him. And, obviously, he's gone now from the Sentinels security team and is going to be kind of doing his own thing. But the one thing I've read is that he's going to be joining the Purifiers.
Right.
Which, if you know the X-Men history, they're a little minor group in there that does have some, X history, I guess, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then going that, like we said, the Strucker's kids, Reed and Caitlin's kids there have gone, separate ways. Andy is the one that's the telekinetic, who you would think at first would be like Legion.
Right.
Just with how the scene was done. Now, obviously, definitely not like Legion. And if you've seen the show, Legion, this is a day and night difference.
Yeah, heavily.
Scott, have you seen Legion?
I have not, no.
Legion's a trip, and I mean that in the best way possible.
You want to talk about euphoric trips? Legion is the most visually impressive show on television of any genre.
It's also a show you need to watch at least 2 or 3 times before I think you can fully grasp, okay, what did I just see? And I don't mean that in the understanding the story. It's just wrapping your head around the visuals and what they pull off.
All right. What's it streaming on?
It's on FX.
FX.
FX? All right.
And season's very short. I believe first season was only 8 episodes. Second one, I think, was 10.
Yeah.
And it definitely ties into the X universe. This is not a shared universe, too. We want to stress that out. Gifted is its own thing that does not have any tie into Legion yet that we know of.
We know of.
But if they want to pull something really wild out, they would. Just throwing that out there, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, you never know.
But getting to it, I mean, obviously the Gifted is the most recognizable X-Men on the show is Polaris, who, if you know anything about her history, she has magnetic powers. She is rumored to be the daughter of Magneto.
It's been rumored.
It's been rumored. It's kind of gone back and forth if it's been confirmed or not. So I'm going to say, just for the show's sake, it's rumored.
It's rumored.
They do imply heavily that her father has ties to the Hellfire Club, and obviously Polaris in this version of the Gifted is pregnant. So Magneto's grandchild is on the way.
How many children does Magneto have?
A lot.
That we know of, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, if we're talking 616 universe.
Right.
Polaris, and I want to say I'm missing one more.
So you're looking at 4 there.
I think, yeah. I know the 3 major ones. I'm not sure if there was a 4th somewhere rumored to.
Now, are these all from the same mother, or?
2 are from the same mother. The other one is, I believe, a second wife.
All right.
So there's a little more time. Like the Lorna Dane connection is always been kind of not really confirmed. It's like been heavily implied, and then I think it was his second wife.
It's always been one of those things that, like, they're not just naming characters that just because they can't come up with anything else.
Right.
They're very deliberately doing that.
Yeah, and I mean the Polaris connection has been more recent over, I'd say, the past decade or so.
Yeah.
Than from where she originally started out. But I thought how they've written her character, I mean, they're showing that she, definitely has a lot more emotional layers to her. She's not just a typical heroine. And just seeing how she's interacting, I mean, obviously her boyfriend on the show is Eclipse, who is a new character, to my knowledge, for the X universe. And he's also taken over like the Professor X lead, but he's not exactly Professor X-like.
No, I mean, while he does have no problem leading, he lacks the, what's the word I'm looking for? The kind of charisma, if you will, that Professor X has, where people look at Professor X and think, oh, all right, we need to follow this guy. You look at Eclipse, and it's like, okay, people will follow him, but they will also have no issue questioning all of his decisions.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing with the Mutant Underground is it's kind of not so much everybody's buying into his cause, it's kind of everybody's thrown together. And he's the one that's got the most, vocals in the room.
But he lacks that certain, like, je ne sais quoi required of being a leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely grown in the role, but it's kind of now with the Strucker family being there, it's kind of he's getting a lot more, I don't want to say dissension in the ranks, but there's a lot more uncertainty of, like, where the direction of the Underground's supposed to go.
Now, is this a role that he's chosen, or was he, like, thrust into this position?
I almost feel like he was thrusted into it because it almost feels like the group wasn't just hey, we got to go form this group and we got to recruit people to our cause. It to me, it kind of strikes me as a group that, they were there, they helped out a few people because they, right place, right time. And then from there, kind of word of mouth just kind of started to spread, and more people started joining them because they heard about it. And okay, these people can help us, and it's kind of grown. It's almost grown into something that's like, all right, we just need to survive. To okay, now we're a leader in this group, of mutants that we're the people that other mutants will look to.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely got a lot more going on to it than your typical X-Men show, I guess I would say, especially with how the group is thrown together. I mean, Thunderbird is, the most prominent member of the Mutant Underground. Like, he is, I would say, if you want to throw it to a Walking Dead comparison, if Eclipse is Rick, he is Thunderbird's Daryl.
Absolutely, because he will have, Eclipse will say, all right, we got to do this. We got to be strategic about it. We got to have a guy here, here, and here. We got to attack this way. We got to attack that way. Thunderbird would be like, nah, and just burst through the front door.
All right.
Yeah, and they throw in, they introduced the character of Blink, who from the Age of Apocalypse, most, popular storyline of, I'd say more recent years. But obviously it's a different version of Blink on the show. And they're tying in, I want to say lesser characters or, not the heavy hitters of the X universe.
Right.
But they're kind of throwing them together and kind of seeing, how it pans out.
They're almost doing it kind of like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did, where, yeah, Nick Fury is a heavy part of S.H.I.E.L.D. when you look at their history, but realistically, Nick Fury in the entire 6 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., he's been on 6. He's been on one episode technically. The other episode he was on was just like a teaser thing they threw in there. But they kind of established the show that, like, okay, how can you do an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show without any Avengers, without any Nick Fury? And they made it work. They're doing an X-Men show where Wolverine's not there, Cyclops isn't there, Jean Grey's not there. I mean, you look at some of the heavy-hitting, big-name X-Men villains, they're not there, and they're making it work.
Well, they're introducing, like I said, the Hellfire Club is coming this season. The
Right.
Purifiers are not... they're not,
right, but you're not seeing like Juggernaut running down the street, bursting through walls.
Right. No, you're not going to see, those, dare I say, Omega level threats on the show. But you're seeing enough that it's being compelling TV. It's been at least enough that it's definitely worth a watch.
Yes.
And it's definitely, it was kind of a surprise because when I originally heard about the show, I was like, I don't really know if I'm going to get into this.
All right.
But it was something that they're tying in elements of the X universe into it. And I mean, obviously with the big reveal, and we are talking spoilers on the show too, is with the twins finally get their powers, they're tying back into, the very obscure Fenris villains of the X universe. Obviously it's a different story,
right.
From what's in the comics, but they're tying in when their powers are touching, when they have physical contact and generate their powers. They're doing like, an Omega level event, so to speak. So it's definitely like a little difference, and you're kind of seeing as they're getting, thrusted into the role, how are they stacking up? And it's like, what side do you agree with, the Professor X side or the Magneto side? So there's enough of this show that has elements of both in it, and it's been worthwhile, and it hasn't been too, I don't want to say teen drama.
No, not at all.
Teen drama-ish. It hasn't been like that at all, and it hasn't been, so over the top, action that it has enough of a fine balance that you can find something in it that's worth watching.
There's enough drama in it to keep you involved in what's going on and what their plight is, but it's also not over the top in, okay, yeah, I get these people have powers. There's no way this could happen.
Yeah.
Now, is it well scripted enough to keep the drama moving and keep you entertained?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say it's definitely not something that they rely on saying we knew the X-Men every episode.
Right.
Like that's the one big knock I have on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 1 until the Captain America 2 episode.
Yeah.
Because every episode, hey, we know the Avengers. Hey, you know that incident that happened in New York, the Avengers? Yeah.
Well, yeah, they'll reference the incident, whatever it is, because we still don't know.
Yeah, they're doing the slow burn about like what happened to the X-Men.
They'll bring it up every now and again, casually in a conversation where it pertains. They're not just dropping, oh, hey, remember the incident? We had that there was that incident with the X-Men. That's not really the case.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely worth a watch. It's not going to be like the most compelling. It's not like Game of Thrones level,
right?
Script, but it has elements in there and enough solid acting that you can definitely buy into the story. And there's just a lot of moving parts now that they're showing more closer ties to the X universe. Is really interesting to see how their take is going to be, especially when you deal with the Hellfire Club. You hear the last name Frost. which it's like they haven't said, to my recollection, they haven't said anything about a connection to Emma Frost.
Right, but like we said before, you're not going to give somebody that last name just willy-nilly.
Yeah, it's just there's so many different moving parts going on with it that it's definitely worth checking out. So I highly recommend checking out the season premiere as we're taping Tuesday night, September 25th, 8 p.m. on Fox. But let us know what you think. Hashtag ODPHE. What's your thoughts on The Gifted? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is George Gatton, and you are listening to the Ocho Duro Harley Hour Entertainment Edition.
Coming back for the final segment on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition. Time to kick off those one-shots, Pad.
Well, got to talk about a little depressing news if you're a video gamer. I know I'm a little depressed by it. Came down on Friday, September 21st, that the video game studio Telltale Games is closing. Now, the name may sound familiar. That is, of course, the company behind the choose your own adventure style video games, where they did Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, Batman, Guardians of the Galaxy. They had Wolf Among Us was a popular one. They did, they did a Minecraft one. I believe they were getting ready to work on a Stranger Things one. But of course, it came down on Friday that they made from their Facebook quote, Today, Telltale Games made the difficult decision to begin a majority studio closure following a year marked by insurmountable challenges. A majority of the company's employees were dismissed earlier this morning, with a small group of 25 employees staying on to fulfill the company's obligations to its board and partners. CEO Pete Hawley issued the following statement. It's been an incredibly difficult year for Telltale as we worked to set the company on a new course. Unfortunately, we ran out of time trying to get there. We released some of our best content this year and received a tremendous amount of positive feedback, but ultimately that did not translate to sales. With a heavy heart, we watch our friends leave today and spread our brand of storytelling across the games industry. Telltale will issue further comments regarding its product portfolio in the coming weeks, close quote. Now, of course, that last sentence is rather interesting because they are in the middle of releasing the final season of the Walking Dead video game. And episode 1 dropped. I believe episode 2 comes out either this week or next week. And past that, nobody's really sure. It's even gotten to the point where the woman who does the voicing for Clementine on the game says, listen, I know as much as you do. I don't think it's coming out. And like I said before, they're working on a Stranger Things game. They're working on other stuff. So, the sad part is you've got a lot of folks out of a job now. But the awesome thing with the video game industry, of course, is whenever this happens, you will see studios like Naughty Dog, Sucker Punch, Sony Santa Monica, who of course worked on the God of War, Guerrilla Games, who worked on Horizon Zero Dawn and Killzone. They will instantly, like the news of this getting posted out, they will post a picture with like every open position they have and go, hey, listen, you guys want a job? Here's our open positions.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it's good to see. Of course, it's sad. And, another article came out today where, they were trying to get somebody to financially back the studio. It's kind of like a last gasp breath, and reportedly it was going to be Lionsgate Studios, but they backed out at like the last minute, so that kind of killed it.
It's too bad. I mean, Telltale has always done a great job with their games. Mm-hmm. I mean, The Walking Dead, if you have not played that one, just that one alone, that one from the first episode to present has been spot on. Mm-hmm. And I wish they would introduce those characters into the TV show.
Right. It's one of those things that, like, you can history will look back and determine, why they failed or why they ended up closing. But I think for the time being, for me, the Walking Dead video game they did was so unique and so different because it was a zombie game, but it wasn't your typical zombie game where, you run around and you have to kill things. Like, yeah, you had to, and plus, every choice you made as the episodes went on, you're kind of sitting there with a timer going, okay, I only have so long to make this decision. Crap, I would make either decision in this scenario.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that it's going to be sad to see that studio go. They've done a lot of quality work, and I mean, hopefully everybody can get some work, in the future for the video games, which I don't see how they couldn't. I mean, the studio does so much good things. It's just it's a crappy situation for them.
Yep.
Well, I feel like, and I don't want to wildly speculate here, but I feel like they oversaturated the market, and they were their own competition.
Yeah, they
put out something like 40 games.
Yeah, that is kind of like the running speculation, is that there wasn't really anybody else doing video games like they were, in that it was story driven. I remember playing at one point the season 1 of the Game of Thrones game, and a friend was watching me play it. They're like, "Are you playing a game or watching a movie?"
Yeah,
I was like, it's kind of a little bit of both. But yeah, no, there is that kind of argument that like they oversaturated, in that it wouldn't be that just they put out a full game and then move on to something else. Everything was episodic. So, you have, episode 1 of The Walking Dead drop, and then 2 months later it's, episode 2. But in the meantime, here's episode 1 of this thing.
Of like Tales from the Borderlands or Minecraft story mode.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it'll just be interesting to see how the story fully plays out. Now, Pat, you had some Marvel comic movie news?
Yeah, so there's some rumors going around on Facebook in regards to the Black Widow movie. Now, of course, this one hasn't been officially announced, but it's kind of running speculation is that Black Widow will be getting her own movie, finally. It's
about time.
It's looking like the movie will be released in around 2020. Of course, nothing officially released yet, so, soft date, we'll call it. Running rumor is, and this comes from a trusted source online, that it will be taking place towards the later half of the 1990s, and that at least part of the film, now this won't be the entire plot, but at least part of the plot will involve the Y2K bug. Now, for those who remember, of course, the Y2K bug was the fear that, the clocks would strike midnight on January 1st, 2000, and then everybody's bank account would be wiped and cost of everything would go through the roof, and, that whole kerfuffle.
I'm just excited to see the movie finally get done.
You know what? I'm excited to see the movie get done, and if this ends up being the case that at least the Y2K bug plays a part in the movie, that makes all the sense in the world, because, you look at Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow, she's a spy. She's trained as a spy, so it would only make sense that somebody engineers the Y2K bug as like a way of causing, James Bond level mass hysteria.
I'm all for it. You know what? Like I said, this is long overdue. The Captain Marvel hype is, continuing to grow as it rightfully should. I'm super excited to see that movie. Scott, what's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts is, how do you engineer the Y2K bug?
I don't know, man.
Wasn't the whole premise or the problem with Y2K is that the computers are going to roll back at year 2000?
Yeah, well, because if memory serves, the premise of the Y2K bug was that the old style dating on bank PCs was 2 digits. So instead of reading 1999, it just read 99. So the running fear was that the computer dates would circle to 00 and think it's 1900.
Yeah.
And thereby all of us don't exist. So, hey, no money.
But if they want to try tying this into S.H.I.E.L.D. versus Hydra and go somewhere with that.
Yeah.
Like Hydra intentionally set it up, when computers were a thing, so there would be a worldwide collapse at the turn of the century.
If you look at it at itself, somebody engineering a massive computer virus to wipe out all of everyone's money in the banks is like a James Bond thing to do. I mean, look back at Goldfinger. The plot of Goldfinger was literally he was going to nuclear contaminate the gold supply at Fort Knox.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's a James Bond plot.
Yeah, I mean, the MCU, hey, they made Ant-Man work. I have full faith they will pull a script out and make this work somehow.
I'm hoping that if it's going to be this ridiculous, they lean into it and lean into the ridiculousness and just sort of embrace it. That I would love to see.
Anytime you get super spy stuff going on, there's got to be some kind of craziness with it. I mean, it can't just be your typical superhero movie. And I'm super excited to see this movie finally get done. Scott, you got anything for one-shots?
Yeah, I'd like to plug my friend Jimmy Gazdick.
Great guy.
Friend of the show, Jimmy's band, Floodlands, is almost done with their first album. They're going to be coming on the show eventually when it's done. But Jimmy will be back on in mid-October. This is kind of why we're starting Costober a little early with our cosplay friends coming on the show. Because Jimmy is coming on with Johnny Moose from Excite Wrestling and Mike C. from Horror Zone 607. They're going to be doing a special edition of the ODPH. I guess you could call it Horror Zone 607 Episode 1. There's going to be, we're kind of spinning them out into their own podcast. So Mike is definitely going to be running the show. I'm going to just be in studio, just hanging out and, just embracing just those three guys in one room and just with a live microphone.
I'll say, if you are a fan of all things horror, that's going to be the episode to listen to.
Yeah, perfect time for Halloween. They're going to have a lot to discuss. The new movie coming out, The Walking Dead. honestly, though, I expect a lot of Friday the 13th talk if Moose is coming on the show.
Yeah, that's a fair bet.
And speaking of those guys, this will spin into my one shot because as we elaborated to at the beginning of the show, RoberCon is this weekend. Now, they're doing a cosplay bar crawl if you're locally in the 607, Friday night. Basically, if you go anywhere downtown Binghamton, there's a plethora, and I do use that word plethora, of bars taking part in the event. So definitely go out, and if you're going to be out that night, check out the costumes. There's going to be stuff going on. We get to Saturday. Robercon.org has all the information. I just got my bullet points that I'm just going to be bringing because 10 a.m., Johnny Moose is going to be at the Walking Dead panel.
Oh, boy.
On panel.
Ooh.
Oh, boy.
Yes. And Moose, like I said, if you've heard him on the wrestling recap, you've heard him on the EE, you know what he's going to be bringing to that. So that is going to be a wild show to be just a part of. I mean, ODPH is going to be down there. Horror Zone 607 is going to be there. Our friend Mike Blakesley from Photography for Mike Blakesley, he's going to be down there as well doing the cosplay stuff. There's just going to be a big group down there, let alone whoever else is going. So we go into what they got going on. Ann Bishop, who is a New York Times bestselling fantasy author of The Others and many other series, she's going to be down there. Uncle Pete, who's the host of the Dark Vault of Public Domain, he's going to be down there as well. They're kind of the guests of honor this year at RoberCon. And, I mean, starting from Saturday morning, 10 a.m. or 9:30, I think the doors open, but 10 a.m. is when everything really gets kicked off. That's when all the panels are kicking off. I mean, they have everything from Babylon 5 to they're doing a Star Wars one. Infinity War panel, and the Stephen King Renaissance panel at 3 p.m. is going to have, I believe, Ralph from Horror Zone 607 on the panel as well, doing some stuff. There is so much going on, and that's just Saturday. I mean, there's going to be gaming going on. There's going to be cosplay. There's going to be everything that you want if you're part of the geek culture. You want to get down there, and then you go into Sunday. I mean, they got everything from the Marvel vs. DC panel, the Game of Thrones one, Supernatural, Star Trek Discovery. The list goes on and on. I mean, I could just honestly keep ranting and raving about it, but go check out robercon.org for more information. Get your badges and get down there this Saturday, September 29th and 30th. It's going to be a show to see. We're going to be at the 10 o'clock panel supporting Moose, and he has a live microphone. He's going to be talking Walking Dead. If that doesn't sell you enough, I don't know what I can do. So that being said, we want to thank again Scott Dixon for coming on the show.
Thank you.
For Padawan J,
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken. Thank you as always for listening to the ODPH Entertainment Edition. We'll see you next time.